Hello, everyone. Welcome to eSight Vision Central Backyard Summer Celebration Activity with the eSight Go. Today is April 25th, 2025 on a Friday. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's Vision Central event. Looks like we're going to have a nice turnout here, which is great. So just for the agenda for today, let's go work on some introduction and a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to talk about the eSight Go MSRP, and then we're just going to have a general discussion of candidates for an eSight Go, and then we're going to talk about backyard summer celebration activities with the eSight Go. So just as an introduction, this is live, so things might happen. Might click the wrong button, might misspeak. So just want to let you know this is live as we go. To raise your hand at the end of the meeting, if you have a question. On a PC, you can press Control-Shift-K or Command-Shift-K on a Mac. And this session should only take about 30 to 45 minutes. So the eSight Go MSRP, the MSRP for the eSight Go is as follows. In the US, it's going to be $4,950, and in Canada, it's $6,600. Now, for candidates for the eSight Go, as eSight coaches, we are not able to discuss like individual candidacy for the eSight Go, whether we know what's going to help an individual for sure, but there's some general guidelines to know whether eSight will be beneficial to someone or not with low vision. So in general, for those that have an acuity of 2080 to 2600, that's kind of the sweet spot of those that benefit from getting the visual boost with the eSight Go. Anyone with acuity that's better than 2080 doesn't really see the benefit of the magnification and the contrast. And if you're beyond 2600, it's a bit more challenging to know whether it's going to help or not. So just as a general idea, if you're aware of your own acuity and you're interested in the eSight, 2880 to 2600 is a good range to keep in mind. The eSight Go was designed to assist those with central vision loss, so conditions such as macular degeneration and stargouts. Does help other conditions as well. You do need to have some functional peripheral vision to get a visual benefit from the eSight Go. Some conditions where there is less peripheral vision are a lot more challenging. So if you are lack that peripheral vision, you may have difficulty seeing the video displays of the unit. eSight Go can assist with a variety of visual conditions, but conditions that affect peripheral vision, such as glaucoma and retinitis pigmentosa, can be more challenging to assist. So it's just very dependent on the individual how well eSight can help with those conditions, but there are patients that do get benefit from the product. All right, so next we're just going to get into the meat of our discussion here, talking about backyard summer celebration activities with eSight Go. And we've got a variety of topics to talk about here. And so first we're going to talk about, using pep in the backyard if you're having company over and, you're getting ready, say, backyard type thing, and also going to discuss hand-eye coordination with using a mosquito repellent stuff. So that's going to be discussed with Jeanette. Jeanette,
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So I live in South Florida, so you can imagine there's lots of outdoor activities, lots of backyard sort of events that tend to happen. So where I am, we have what's called a lanai, which is like a screened in area, a patio, if you like. But of course, you have that, and then you have the grassy areas where people can go. And I like to always polish my furniture outside, when we're getting ready for the event, whatever that event will be, an outdoor event. Sometimes people just like to sit around where we are, in the evenings and chill out there with maybe some some chips and salsa on the table. And if you're in that sort of situation, you're going to want probably your eSight on to see where everything is. There's nothing worse than having food there out on the table in the middle of the patio, and you can't see it, and everybody's chomping away, and you don't know it's there. It's or you don't know what's there. So I always advise people, have your eSight available when you know there's going to be some snacks around, because people aren't always going to remember to say to you, hey, just in case you didn't know, there's some snacks in the middle of the table. So there's that. There's just preparing the yard using your eSight, maybe to make sure that there's nothing lying around, nothing that kids can trip on, or there's nothing dangerous around. That you want to do. The other thing I like to do is we have a lot of mosquitoes, and I'm sure that in the summer many states in America do. So I tend to like to have a mosquito repellent. Now, there's different ways of doing this. We have a natural repellent in a can that you can just spray. It's natural, so it's not going to harm you. But I also like to sometimes light incense. And that can be a little bit of a challenge when you're low vision. So I actually bought an incense holder that is like a square glass container, and it sits in a little wooden reciprocal, and apparently you're supposed to put the incense upside down, but you can put it either way. But to light the incense is interesting. It's a challenge. If you've got a long taper, what I tend to do, excuse me, I'm still getting over a cough. What I tend to do is I mix my eSight view with feel. So I put my fingers close to the top of the incense so I can kind of get a good grip on where it is. And then I'll look with my eSight and I'll set the zoom level to a level where I can also see the incense. And that's a really good thing about eSight, is that, where the incense is really thin and you may not see it with the naked eye, you can see it with the eSight, especially if you light it in an area where the wall behind the incense or in front of you is a light color and the surface is a light color. If everything's a dark color, you may find that incense stick, which typically is a dark color, will blend in too much. So one of the things that I do is I might light it inside in the house or in an area of the yard where there's a white wall in front of me or a light colored wall in front of me, so that the contrast is there and it makes the stick stand out. When you're looking at it with your eSight, it stands out even more. Then what I'll do is I will take a long taper, and just get the zoom level ready to an extent where I can actually see the top of the incense stick, see the taper, and then when I go to light the taper, once I've identified where the incense is, I might want to zoom down a little bit, okay? Because that when you light the taper, the flame is going to be real bright and really big, depending on the zoom level that you've got. So at that point, once you've identified what you need in terms of what you need to see, I will go down a little bit before I actually light the taper, and then line it up with the top of the incense, using your eSight and the feel of the top of your fingers near to the top of the edge, and then put it on there and let it catch and blow it out, and there you are. I would say a similar technique can be used for things like citronella candles. I'd be careful with those things, because the tall torches that have citronella stuff, they can fall over. So I'd be careful to put those on a really flat surface. And also the citronella candles, again, I'd put those, make sure you've got them on a flat surface. Don't put them anywhere that's rocky or grassy kind of areas, because when they fall over, they will stay alight. So be careful. But anyway, I find that incense works just like those coils. They don't like smoke, mosquitoes. So there you go. So that's what I tend to do. And again, I would say that you need good hand-eye coordination with your eSight in order to start using tapers and messing with flames and stuff like that. I would make sure that before you dive into that, you've got good eye-hand coordination with your eSight.
Good, excellent, and yeah, exactly. With the Centinela candles, I've had experience where I've had them fall over and they still stay lit, and the contrast really I find in that discussion, lining it up like a dark background when you're lining up the lighter to try to light the wick of the incense or say the candle works out great. So those are great tips, Jeanette, and thank you. That's very good. Next, we're going to talk about the backyard games with Richard. And Richard, you can take it away.
Thank you, Tyler. So, um, at cookouts, stuff like that, a lot of times you will have like backyard games like in the Midwest, we call it cornhole, or Canadians call it beanbag, disc golf, horseshoes, all very similar, and, all are going to carry similar techniques. So, one thing that I find kind of interesting that I want to share with everyone is the way that you think you are going to use your eSight, and then the way that you end up using it, it can be different, especially if you haven't done the activity before. So when you go into doing a new activity, go in with an open mind of that I'm going to find the best way to make the eSight work for me. So when I started playing like disc golf, I thought that I was going to use the eSight. I would wear it, I would throw my disc, and I would watch it, and I would watch it go in the basket. And that wasn't actually how things ended up when the rubber hit the road. And what I mean by that is what I ended up doing was the eSight was really, really helpful at helping me locate the baskets, or the, I don't even know what you call the cornhole thing, but the base. Um, it helps me find that and locate that where I wouldn't be able to normally. Once I'm able to locate it, for me, what I end up doing is taking my go, let it hang from its lanyard, and I'll actually make my throw that way, because it was just a little bit more natural for me. So um, I knew where I'm going. I kind of have that picture in my head. So then once I make my throw, I pull my eSight up, and then I'll use my eSight as to help me find where my disc or where the beanbag went. Um, Now there are some tricks when it comes to that. One thing that I have used in the past, and this, in general, it can be a little bit hit or miss, but in this particular circumstance, I find it helpful, and that is I'll go to a gray scale, um, and basically that just sets my grass into like a slate gray color. Anything other than grass pops up white. So it's real easy for me to find my disc or my beanbag, or whatever, and whatever I'm looking for. Even a horseshoe will, stand out pretty well with that. Um, so those are all those are all kind of the techniques that I'm using while I'm throwing. Now there are you can totally try it while wearing the glasses, but like I said, don't be afraid to try different things. Maybe something that it's different than what you thought of. Another really important thing while being outside is if you can negate the oncoming sunlight, or just the sunlight in general, because a lot of us are light sensitive. And while it is purposeful that we have our peripheral vision underneath, that is part of the design. It is for mobility, but it does also allow light to come in. So if you're in an outside setting like that, definitely utilize your big broad rimmed hats, your sun visors, things like that can and will help. Um, Another thing that I do personally, and this is, you know, it, it's different for everybody, and this is not the most comfortable solution, but I will wear like a pair of sports goggles. You can wear those underneath. Like tinted sports goggles, so that's my sunglasses. And the reason I do that is because, um, since the eSight sets on your nose, you don't have much room there. So I try to get something that is small and covers my eye as much as possible. So I'll use sports goggles, motorcycle glasses is another thing that I've used in the past. Just anything that helps to negate that sunlight from coming in from around, because I want to see with my peripheral vision, but I can't if that light is coming in real hard. Um, so those are some of the main tips. And like I said, I use it a lot to scan that terrain, locate those objects that you are trying to interact with, and then take the next step. You can try it interacting with the eSight on, and if that doesn't work well, try interacting with it without, and going back and forth and using it where you need it, because that's really what it's all about at the end of the day. So
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks, Richard. That's good. And with the games and stuff, the backyard games. I've done the cornhole on a cruise once, and using the eSight to see that and zoom in and kind of get the idea of where the board is and the distance, and then throwing it. And I never got one in the hole. I was close. I hit the board, but I never got one in the hole. But I could actually watch others though do it, which I thought was really interesting. My father, with he was tossing and he was getting sinking right in the hole, but I could actually zoom in and watch that and definitely feel more engaged in
yeah,
participating and watching others play as well, right? It wasn't like, okay,
yep,
I'm looking at mine and the rest of it's kind of just a blur and I'm cheering on, but I don't know what I'm cheering on, where I'm actually seeing it. And I thought that was really
yep,
neat too with that. And that's the one nice thing with he said, if you do have, people in the backyard and they're playing games and stuff, or going outside, say school events and so forth, you can see it, participate it, and know what's going on. So that's great. Thank you, Richard.
yeah. That's just Tyler. That was great to add.
Yeah.
And it's spot on. I was even thinking like even same thing would apply. If you're playing like croquet or something, right? Like
Yep.
you seeing where the balls are placed or what is in play. I missed that, but but that is what I mean by looking at other things that you might not anticipate right away, but then you're like, oh yeah, I can see where everything's played now.
Mm-hmm.
I can see there's stuff in the way over here. So yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. Excellent. All right. And next, we're going to talk about backyard outdoor cooking with Leah.
All right. So cooking outdoor, whether you call it grilling or barbecuing, you're going to pretty much be using the same general concepts. You definitely, before you start, if you're not as familiar with your barbecuing device, whether it's a grill, a smoker, a griddle like the Blackstone griddles, charcoal grill, things like that, definitely get accustomed to that particular item. Know where your dials are, whether or not if it's a propane based device, of if it has a starter button. If that doesn't work, then definitely find out where the best place to light a match and start everything, get that fire going and stuff. And so, because you definitely don't want to, once you have that propane tank on and those burners on, you definitely don't want that gas to accumulate and possibly cause an issue or anything. So know where everything is ahead of time. You're going to most likely use your tilt probably at a -4, just so that way it's angled downward. And you can zoom if you're working off of the dials first, of getting those set up and everything, you can zoom in enough to see the dials. Otherwise, I would probably recommend just zooming in to where you have the entire apparatus in your view. And as anything with the hand-eye coordination, it's going to be a blend mixture of your natural vision underneath the device, as well as the magnification with the device itself. The one good thing about a griddle is that you can't lose food. You can't like roll a hot dog between the grates, that kind of thing, and cause issues. Charcoal is a little bit more finicky. You have to get that started. It has to be at a certain temperature, and how the charcoal looks and things like that. So that's a little bit more complicated. That might be not as convenient with the eSight. Cooking things on a charcoal grill, yes, it can be done with the eSight. But as far as determining whether or not the charcoal is hot enough, you might want to get a second opinion for that. Definitely have your meat thermometer ready to go. Also, make sure that your eSight is able to read it. If you have the option and can look at the different meat thermometers that are available to you, if you can see like this one has a screen, but the eSight doesn't read it, it washes it out or something like that, then go for a different style, go for a different brand or whatever, a different option. Anything to make it easier to read with the eSight. And then again, your hand-eye coordination of putting the food on. Knowing I would use the natural vision just for more of a depth perception type issue, but then using the eSight to roll the hot dogs, flip the burgers, that kind of thing, the after you put the food on and stuff. And then just being able to use the eSight to see what's cooking, see how everything looks, and then being able to read that thermometer without having to like get right up into the heat and the smoke and everything to be able to see things. It's the safety aspect with it of you can stand back and cook like I would say a normal person, but I don't want to be mean to the sighted, but you can cook that way and not have as many issues. So
That's good. That's great. And
yeah.
one thing too, I think with outdoor cooking, I find depending on how well with the eSight Go, the contrast. I found the contrast can be very beneficial for me. Where if I have something cooking, I can see more of a distinction of the texture. So if I'm cooking burgers or hot dogs or chicken, if it starts to change color or it gets a bit more crisp, I can see that develop more with contrast, and I find contrast to be really helpful with that. And I think Leah's exactly right. If you're using a new device outdoors or when you're cooking, getting comfortable with it prior to using it for the first time is good. Getting comfortable where the dials are, where the ignition is. One thing I find with I have a propane grill in the backyard. When I'm lighting the barbecue, I'll light one burner, and I have a 3-burner grill. I'll light one, zoom in on it, make sure it's lit, see if I can see the flame, and then I'll slowly add gas for the other ones for them to catch and light as well, instead of turning them all on and then trying to press the button and hope it catches, right? And I just kind of use my eSight to guide it along and to check things, and you're getting comfortable with what it is and what the device is. Also, for myself, with the eSight, there's something to say if you're turning off the propane, there might not be labels or clear indications. So not having a visual reference may be a challenge. So just knowing, okay, turning it to the left turns it off, or turning it to the right turns it on. And I kind of always have a ritual in my head to go, okay, this is my process, A, B, C to D, to make sure I'm setting things up properly, and then integrating the eSight into that. And then when I'm shutting down, kind of the same process in terms to make sure I turn off all the valves and turn off the burners and so forth as needed.
Yeah, I mean, I find all of that safety stuff is really important. The other thing about safety, Tyler, when Leah was talking about the food thermometers, I also find that so that I can keep my eye on what I'm actually cooking, I also have a talking thermometer. It's got a big display as well, but so that I
Oh,
don't have
okay.
to look away and look at the thermometer, I got a talking thermometer on Amazon, and it's superb. You can turn
Well,
the
that's
voice off
excellent.
if you want, but if you want to just keep your eyes on what you're doing and not have to turn at the side, and now you have to adjust your zoom for the food thermometer, you have a talking one. It's really handy because you can just keep it in there and press a button to hear it saying what the temperature is while you're looking at what you're doing.
Nice. That's great. Well, that's good. That's a good tip. Very cool. Thank you. All right. And next, we're going to talk about backyard supervision of guests with Cosmo.
Yeah. So with the eSight, if you're going to be outdoors, mobility is important, and I like to wear my eSight Go as high up on the nose as I can get it. So I've got one of the medium nose pieces in, but then I have it pinched up and it's sitting way up here. So I have all this downward naked eye vision and sideways peripheral vision. And because you don't want to be staring down your screen as you're walking, it throws off your depth perception. So you want to navigate as you normally would and use the eSight to spot stuff. The eSight Go has a real nice feature, which is the tilt. It's a digital tilt of the camera, and it can tilt down 12 degrees. And that might not sound like much, but it's pretty significant, especially when you're zoomed in. It's great for reading. You don't have to crane your neck way down like this anymore. But when I'm walking around, I tilt it down 1 or 2 steps. And then because my eSight's up here, I just have to tilt my head back a little bit. And now I'm looking at you and my phone with my naked eye. And then I just gaze up, my camera's pointing down, and I'm looking at you through the eSight now. So there's no head movement involved. So that makes it a lot easier. So moving around outdoors, navigate as you normally would, look at your feet through your naked eyes. And, if you want to spot something, then you tilt your head down and there you have it. Dealing with the sunlight outside, um, overhead, the eSight's pretty good and the light doesn't do much, but when it's coming in from the side, or one time I had difficulty, the sun was bouncing off some light colored dirt, and that made just light come from every which angle. And so cupping your hands around the side can help, or wearing a brimmed hat if the sun is overhead. Um, Finder on the remote, there's a button in the upper left hand corner. You can push it and hold it down. That will zoom you out of whatever level you're in. It will present you a little rectangle, and when you let go, it will zoom back into that rectangle. So it's nice to get your bearings if you're at a high zoom level. Typically, when I'm walking around, I'm at ×8 or ×12, and your field of view is narrowed because you're zoomed in. And so you push and hold that, zooms you out, get your bearings, see your moving target. Oh, there's my kid over there. And then get that rectangle on them, let go, and it zooms you back in. So that's a real handy feature. And that is the only thing actually you are missing out by not using your remote. I actually 90% of the time use my headset controls. There's 4 buttons on the right arm that are really nice and tactile. They're raised and they make a nice clicking. And so I don't want to deal with my remote falling off my lap. And so most of the time I just use these. But that finder button is the only thing that's on the remote that isn't on here. Everything else you can do here. And it's just great to be able to be totally hands-free. Don't have to worry about a remote and just come up here and make the adjustments. Um, and being conservative with your zoom levels. If you fly all the way up to 24, it's going to be hard to keep track of what you're looking at if it's moving around. So zoom in nice and slow, and keep your target in your field of view. And if it's really hot out and you're going to be in a lot of sunlight, it might be a good idea to bring a little white washcloth or something and drape that over uh, the eSight, just to help keep it cool, because black plastic can get warm sometimes, and a big brimmed hat would also help with that. And stay away from the pool. Don't want to have this drop in the pool, but if that is a concern, you got the lanyard. You can snug that lanyard up, and if you've got a smaller head and you're worried about it falling off, I've got a bigger head, so my eSight isn't going anywhere. But you can always put on that lanyard, and that gives you a little extra security if you're moving around a bunch.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you very much, Cosmo. That's great, and appreciate it. And then next, if anyone has any questions, they can feel free to raise their hand. Yep.
I was going to say a quick thing about, especially
Sure.
if you're doing things outdoors, is I talk with my hands a lot, so I don't like the remote around my wrist. So what I will do is, especially if I'm wearing, well, it only works this way if I'm wearing pants with belt loops, is that I will thread the remote through a belt loop and then through the strap so it's hanging down on my pants, and so it's easily accessible, but it's not in the way of anything. And also, if I get up from the table, like let's say you have a plate of food, trash, your hands are full, and you need to do something, you're not going to leave the remote behind. You still have access to it. So that way, after you throw things away, if you're walking someplace else, you still have the remote on you, and it's not going to get left behind by accident and moved and misplaced and things like that. So I'll actually thread mine through a belt loop to keep that from happening.
Excellent. All right, that's a great tip. Thank you, Leo. Perfect. Okay. Well, next, if anyone have any questions or the topic kind of using the eSight, the outdoors in the backyard, or anything we covered, you can feel free to raise your hand. And Devesh, if you could help with any questions that are asked, that'd be great.
Yep.
And if no one had asked a direct question now, that's okay. You can also reach out to your eSight coach and talk about topics and so forth. One thing I was thinking of is that when you are using your eSight in a new situation, it does take some practice to get comfortable with it. Especially playing a new game like cornhole or disc golf and so forth. Just to practice, get used to it, and then trying again and getting the feel of it. Nothing ever comes straight away with using the eSight, and you're trying a new activity. You just to give yourself that lenience to learn things and develop a technique that works well for you. And if you do have questions, if you're trying something new, feel free to reach out to your eSight coach and give us a call here. And eSight, we're happy to help and discuss a new situation that you're trying to do. But it doesn't look like we have any questions, so we'll wrap up for today. So thank you everyone for joining for this month Vision Central, and great to have everyone here discussing our backyard activities here for the summer. And looking forward to seeing everyone next month at the end of May. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.